Hi, it is Wednesday, June 16th, and we are back to read some more of Almost Super. We're going to read 2 chapters today. We're going to read chapter 3 and chapter 4. So yesterday we found out what their powers were. Not as good of powers as they had hoped they would get, but we'll see what happens with their powers. Maybe they'll do something with them. All right, let's get started. Chapter 3. Oh, before we get started, do you have your super colors on? I got my orange and black. I got my orange cup again so I can have a drink every once in a while. Got to keep hydrated. All right, drink your goat's milk. Have you ever drank goat's milk? I don't think I ever have. All right, laying in bed, half asleep, I figured I'd had a nightmare. A nightmare where Benny and I had gotten the worthless powers. I struggled to remember what our real powers were. Benny's alarm rang. He slid off the bed and fell in a heap on the floor. His head poked out from under the covers. Is it morning? I heard a pop. His belly button. It hadn't been a dream. Yeah, it's morning, I say. Mom's voice echoed through the house. Boys, breakfast! Fighting a wave of despair, I got up, went to our walk-in closet, and stepped inside. I quickly got dressed and then grabbed my shoes and socks. When I came out of the closet, I saw Benny on the floor, his belly and face pressed flat against the carpet. He pushed against the carpet with his hands. What are you doing? I asked. Push-ups, he said, gasping at his plump body as his plump body rose in the air. His arms shuddered under the weight, and his whole frame shook with effort. I had a thought. Have you tried doing push-ups with your belly button? I asked. Maybe your navel is like some kind of amazing, unstoppable force. And you could... Already tried it, Benny grunted. Didn't work. I sighed and began pulling on my socks and shoes. So why are you doing push-ups? Benny collapsed to the floor and rolled onto his back. I want to be as strong as possible when we get our super suits. The more muscles I have, the better I'll be able to fight. Benny's breathing came in puffs. His face was flushed. How many push-ups did you do? I asked. Benny sat up. 5. But I bet I can get up to 6 by tomorrow. He stood and flexed his muscles. Oh yeah, I can tell I'm getting stronger already. I didn't have the heart to tell Benny that the ability to do a lot of push-ups would never come in handy when fighting supervillains. I went downstairs, finding the same breakfast we had every day of our lives. I can tell you 100 advantages of living in a superhero family. The cool devices, the secret identities, the off chance of meeting with high-up government officials, but the superhero diet is not one of them. Ah, said Dad, striding into the room. The breakfast of superheroes. He dished up some rice in a bowl, sprinkled spearmint leaves on top, and poured a pint of warm goat's milk over the green and white lump. He shoveled it into his mouth and smiled. I dropped into my seat and stared at the white blob. I could barely stomach this food on a good day, and today was not a good day. Can Benny and I have cold cereal? I finally asked, since we're not going to be superheroes. Nonsense, Mom said. You're superheroes just like the rest of us. This food keeps us in tip-top shape, Dad said, his mouth full of rice, both mental and physical. It's a perfect balance of nutrients and vitamins, and the spearmint keeps your breath minty fresh. I'd rather have cereal, I said, the kind with marshmallows. Or what about eggs and bacon? I still remember the last time I had bacon. It was like heaven in my belly. We eat regular food when we have to blend in. I've eaten bacon 4 times in my life, and every time was memorable. Drink your goat's milk, Dad said. I didn't eat anything. I had a big chunk of gloom in my gut, and it didn't want company. Benny came downstairs and dashed up a large helping of rice and goat's milk. I need extra energy because I'm doing push-ups, he explained. Rodney had already left for school. Everyone ate in silence until Dad finally cleared his throat. I thought you boys might want to know that I called around to some of our neighboring cities, spoke to some of my cousins and uncles. Yesterday, everybody who was old enough got interesting powers. I remember what he said last night and wondered if he really meant worthless powers. Like what? Benny asked. Let me think, Dad said. Spencer is the son of one of my cousins. He has the ability to knit. He can't do it fast, and he can't knit anything useful like steel cables or carbon nano strings. In fact, he can only knit sweaters. Sweaters, I asked. Dad nodded. And they don't even fit people, just small dogs, toy poodles, chihuahuas, or puppies, I guess. His power is the ability to knit small dog sweaters? Yep, Dad said. And your second cousin, Anya? She sees a timer above everybody's head. It tells her how long it's been since that person's last shampooed their hair. I couldn't believe it. Why is this happening? Nobody answered my question. I looked at the clock. In 10 minutes, the bus would stop in front of our house. Benny and I would climb aboard. 8 minutes after that, we would stop and pick up Juanita Johnson. Because of our worthless powers, she would have the perfect opportunity to. I couldn't believe I'd been so slow. Of course, I said. What is it, son? Mom asked. Benny and Dad both stopped eating to stare at me. I saw a glimmer of hope, a flicker of light in a black cave. We didn't get our real powers yesterday, I said, having a long time talking through my excitement. Somehow, the Johnsons messed things up. They gave us these worthless ones instead. It's so obvious. All I got from my grand revelation was, can someone please pass the spearmint? Dad looked skeptical. I don't think that's how it works, he said. It's a universal that gives us these powers. The Johnsons can't intervene with that. And you're forgetting to shake your fist when you say Johnsons. And Dad shook his fist twice. I shook my fist, but only because I didn't want an argument. This is all part of their plan, I said. They took away our power so Juanita can get us at school. Juanita can't do anything at school. You know that, Dad said. Supervillains have to maintain a secret identity, just like we do. Stay in public places and you'll be fine. Just don't make the mistake of getting caught alone with this girl. We couldn't skip school, I suggested, at least until we know what's going on. Rafter, honey, Mom said. Do you have another algebra test that you're trying to get out of? I know how you struggle with math. I don't struggle with, I took a deep breath. Dad, will you at least call Grandpa and see what he thinks? I remembered something. Yesterday, right before we got our powers, I saw a flash of light. Did anyone else see that? Blank stares. I think you might be gasping at straws, son, Dad said. I'm not, I said. I thought I saw a flash of light when Benny got his power, and then again when I got mine, like lightning. Dad raised his eyebrows. From outside? Yeah, I tried to remember exactly what I'd seen. It seemed like it was coming from the right, maybe a little behind our house. Like from downtown, Dad asked. No, I said, more towards the mountain, like out on Highway 89 in the direction of the dump. Dad went back to his breakfast. Don't you think it really was a flash of light? Somebody else would have seen it, Dad said. There were dozens of us in the room. Everybody was looking at Benny and me, and I said, we were the only ones facing the window. Just tell Grandpa about the light. That might be important. Dad sighed. I'll talk to Grandpa. I just don't want to see you get your hopes up and then have them dashed again. I grabbed some food after all. I knew I was right. Grandpa would put together a team and we'd figure out what was going on. Somehow I would get my power and I would find a way to save the day. I finished my breakfast and then went to get my backpack. The Johnsons had stolen my dream, and the Johnsons had taken my power. It was time to take it back. Chapter 4. If he offers candy, don't take it. Benny and I stood on the corner of Camel Street and Alpaca Way, waiting for the bus. The sidewalks had been shoveled and were clear of snow, and I breathed out slowly and watched the mist disappear in the cold March air. Benny and I stood away from the other kids so we could talk in relative privacy. So how are we going to get Juanita? My brother asked. I looked at him in surprise. What are you talking about? We're not going to get Juanita. You heard Dad. We have to stay away from her. How come? Benny asked. We're superheroes. Fighting supervillains is what we do. Have you forgotten we got worthless powers? I asked Benny in a low voice. He didn't look too happy at me being reminded. We have to wait for Grandpa and Dad to figure out what the Johnsons have done. Once we get our real powers, then we can worry about Juanita. Benny scowled. I still think we can handle her. The bus came and we climbed on board. Mike Shade, one of my best friends, waved me over to a seat. We hadn't sat together on the bus for at least a year. I didn't know why he'd chosen today to have me sit by him, but I walked over feeling pleased. I missed talking with him. Hey, Rafter, Mike said. Sorry, I wasn't waving at you. I was waving at Skylar behind you. My face turned red. Yeah, I said, I knew that. I just wanted to say hi. Oh, Mike said. Hi. I walked to the back of the bus and sat by Benny, my face still burning. Mike and I used to hang out all the time, but then things had changed when I learned about my family secret. Mike's dad is a police officer, and the police don't really like superheroes. We fight crime for free, and in fact, with the exceptions of the Johnsons, there aren't a lot of criminals left in our city. Bad guys know that if they do something wrong, they're going to get caught. A lot of people have even said we don't need the police anymore. So while I was looking forward to being a superhero like my dad, Mike saw his dad always worrying about his job. Mike never suspected I was a superhero, but it was hard to hear him saying nasty things about superheroes, about my family. Being a superhero can be lonely. Luckily, I had Benny. Did you know, I realized that my brother was talking to me, that lumberjacks can grow facial hair at 3 times the normal speed of regular men? Huh? I wasn't sure what to say. I don't think that's right. Where did you hear that? I read it in a book. Benny tapped my arm. This is Juanita Stomp. 2 boys and a girl climbed on the bus, but Juanita was nowhere in sight. Benny leaned over and whispered in my ear, maybe she got flying, and she doesn't need to take the bus anymore. I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. We rode the rest of the way in silence, and the bus stopped at our school, and we climbed off, and Benny and I got off last. Benny bent over to tie a shoelace, and the bus pulled away. Something across the street caught my attention. Hey, I said, pointing. Look at that guy over there. A man stood across the street behind a tree. He looked silly because the trunk wasn't more than a few inches thick. In fact, the whole tree was probably only 8 feet tall. Benny and I could see him clearly. He wore a trench coat over a pair of striped pajamas, and his nose was red from the cold. He had a large stocking cap and a fake beard. I could see the elastic strap that kept the hairy mass pressed against his face. "Stranger danger," Benny hissed. If he offers candy, don't take it." I didn't expect the man to offer us candy. A single word went through my head. "Johnson." The man stepped away from the tree and walked towards us. He held something in front of him, pointing it directly at Benny and me. I pulled Benny behind me and then got a better look at the object in the man's hand. I let out my breath. "It's a phone," I said, moving backwards, pushing Benny towards the school. "Is he a Johnson?" Benny asked. "Not one that I recognize," I said. "Maybe he's from out of town." The man punched a button on his phone. He was now close enough that I heard it beep. The man peered at the phone and then threw back his head and laughed. It took only a second for me to understand. Somehow that phone told him what our powers were, and my face grew hot. "Come on," I said, grabbing Benny by the arm. "Let's get to school." "What just happened?" Benny asked. "What did he do?" "That was a Johnson." I shook my fist long and hard, and it means I was right at breakfast. He had some sensor on his phone, one that told him what our powers were. That's why he was laughing. The villains messed up our powers, and they sent somebody down here to make sure it worked. The man still howled with laughter behind us. I resisted the urge to turn around and chase him down. What would I do if I caught him? He wasn't wearing any polyester, and I didn't have any matches. An electronic buzz cut through the air. First period. "Remember what Dad said," I told Benny. "Keep to public places, hang out in the library during recess, and stay in class. Just because Juanita wasn't on the bus doesn't mean she's not here." Benny gave us a thumbs up. "Piece of cake," he said, and turned and left for class. I left for history. When history was finished, I braced myself. I walked into algebra, ready for anything. My stomach felt all twisted up inside. But Juanita wasn't in her seat when I got there, and she wasn't there when I left. In fact, I didn't see her all day. The twisted feeling in my stomach grew worse. And that's the end of chapter 4. So tomorrow, on Thursday, we will read chapter 5. In the bag, Benny, in the bag. So, guys, have a great time, and we will see you tomorrow. Remember, have a great day, and happy reading. See ya!